Brian works on jobs and the economy, and Garrett's been leading it when it comes to energy and the environment. What I thought I'd do today, I'm going to start off talking a little bit about their task force, asking them a few questions about that, then we'd open it up, talk about more as we go. And Jim, you have so many different topics that you've been working on, but within your task forces, really you go out to the American public, and we see it day in and day out, the number of freedoms that people have been losing, but the fear of what they can lose in the future as well. If you give us a little update on where it's going, what people have fear from.
Yeah, I mean, I hear about it from constituents all the time, or as we travel, we hear about it from Americans across the country. You think about it, I maybe said this the other day, but every single right we enjoy under the First Amendment has been assaulted over the last year. Until a few months ago, there were still some locations in the country where a full congregation couldn't meet on a Sunday morning. Your right to assemble, I always use the example, about a year ago I spoke to the New Mexico Republican Party in Amarillo, Texas, because they had to go to Texas to get the freedom to assemble because their Democrat governor wouldn't let them get together in their own darn state. And you can just go down the list. I still remember the moment when Jen Psaki stood at the White House. Think about your freedom of the press. You all should care about. We all should care about. Jen Psaki standing at the lectern in the White House press briefing room, and she is the press spokesperson for the President of the United States in the White House, considered the center of freedom. And she basically said this. She said, most Americans now get their news from social media platforms. We, the Biden administration, are working with these social media platforms to limit the information Americans get to see. And I'm like, wait, something doesn't seem right about this. You got the press person in the White House, in the press room, making those kind of statements. And then on it goes. And the one we care, I think, most about is your right to speak, because I tell folks all the time, if you can't talk, what do the rest of your rights mean? I mean, can you really practice your faith? And so this is the concern Americans have, and whether it's big tech, whether it's the cancel culture mob coming after people who don't speak what the woke mob thinks is appropriate, this is very scary. And so you add to that concerns about other liberties, you add to that this debate where some say government knows what's best for kids versus moms and dads directing the upbringing of their children's education, something that the leader's working with Julia Letlow and some other things. So that's sort of the broad spectrum. How it translates into legislation, we're not exactly sure yet. Certainly there'll be something that we're working with Kathy on I think on big tech. I know Kevin and Kathy talked about that yesterday. But it's mostly just highlighting the concerns there and making sure, and I'll finish here, the committee that I get to serve on, we are supposed to be the committee in Congress most concerned about protecting the American people's liberty, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, rule of law. And we have to get back and stay focused on that. And so that's what the task force is about, and how it relates to judiciary. That's sort of where we're trying to go with it.
Well, you serve on Judiciary today as a ranking member. If we're fortunate enough to take the majority, you'll become chair. You've been working with Kathy. You got both jurisdiction when it comes to big tech. You've spent some time at this. You've got a number of bills that the Democrats tried to bring through, but it seemed like they wanted to make big tech utilities instead of protecting freedoms and others. You want to touch a little on some of the ideas that we can move through with big tech, hopefully in the next Congress.
I think first and foremost is an complete overhaul change of Section 230, the liability protection that big tech platforms now enjoy. That has to change. If you're going to make editorial decisions, that has to change. You talked about this yesterday, Leader. I think it's right on target. We do think that it's important to get any antitrust actions in an expedited fashion in front of the Supreme Court. Justice Thomas has talked about he wants to deal with this issue. I think the court is looking to. So let's expedite how these cases move through our federal court system. Hopefully, get them to the court in an expedited way. Those are some of the things we're looking at, and then hopefully you have increased competition. So it's not just a handful of these platforms with all the power, but there's real competition there. The one thing I'm concerned about is empowering the agencies, because I think, frankly, we see this, I think, in other agencies, but certainly I'm concerned about at the FTC, the leadership there working with big tech to further restrict and censor conservative thought and conservative speech. So we're very nervous about that, and that's where, unfortunately, I think the Democrat legislation, bills sponsored by Mr. Cicilline and others, where those bills would take us. So I think that's the wrong approach. The right approach is competition. The right approach is taking away the liability protection. The right approach is hopefully getting any trust actions in front of the Supreme Court in a much quicker fashion.
So right out. You know,